Hello, everyone. So today I'm just going to do my little mix mashup like I usually do when I come on. There are so many topics that I have uh, possibly just heard randomly or through a program or a message time just came to me while I was watching something during the week or so, and I just have a discussion about them. And sometimes I just put, most of the time, I try to include what the revelation I believe has been given to me through scripture uh, as I know it. So, here is one thing that I was thinking about our communication these days. Our communication is suffering. And if you think about it, if you think from a scriptural standpoint, what was the issue with building this great building, the building tower of in Babylon? The problem was the communication was confounded. No one could understand each other. Therefore, it was no more progress made, except for the progress that had been made prior to their languages being distorted amongst each other. Let's look at the implications from the internet, by the internet and our digital means. What is occurring with us with the the nature of communication. So there are a lot of different types of ways we communicate with each other, nuances, colloquialisms, slang, idioms, any type of language like that we might mix up because today the dictionary adopts a lot of new words that people make more instantaneously than they did in the past. But many of these words are very divisive. They cause division, isolation, and separation amongst people. They're not very inviting. So if you listen to someone speak at some point in time, they're going to say, "What? I don't want to hear that. I don't have to listen to that. No, I don't accept that." So I just tune them out. And this is piling up to our immunity with, you know, having real conversations, thoughtful, decent, respectful, ethical conversations. And it's turning our hearts towards wanting to be, um, how can I say? How can I think of? I'm so full with this. Um, being in a way we can be privatized to some degree. For instance, one side of for your computer to the other person's computer, for instance, and thereby numbing us down as we're having patience to deal with each other, but becoming more accepting to um, the digital aspect of communicating. And it's really mind-boggling to me how people spend so much time now uh, reviewing these androids, these humanoids that are appearing. Yes, it's fascinating to see something that is not human speak on its own, function on its own at the same time. But sometimes it's an exaggerated experience because people want so much to have something that they own selfishly, and they don't want to share it with each other, especially if it's communication or a person. If it feels like it's a person, then it feels like they're in the position of a godhead or they're stroking their ego to some degree. Because behind all of these AI are all of the people in the world contributing to whatever they become. How? Because it studies nuances, it studies all types of behaviors that people have, cognitive behaviors, kinesthetic behaviors, all of our behaviors and nuances. And we are the people who are speaking and giving the words to these devices and teaching them how to operate in our atmosphere because we are in our environment because we are adopting things and they're being indoctrinated as well into our society. So while we can make fun at someone moving kind of robotic, we are building the robots. We are building the robots in the future that we're so afraid of that might take some of our jobs and all. All we have to do is just realize that we have a voice as well. There, I talk about it often, and I would like to get more involved myself in the communications aspect. The communications don't really pose something on us that we do not want. It's just that if they propose something and there's no one there to negate it, then whatever they propose actually stands. And this is another attestation to what I found in the scripture. People will become lovers of themselves. They think it's right to gather and conspire and impose something wrong. They don't counsel with God, but if they feel like they have a center stage to do something wrong to somebody that they had never discussed with them prior to, but they feel like that person did something to them. If they have the opportunity, they're going to try to deliver the vengeance in that instance. And all of this has to do with some form of communication. If you do not pray and talk to God, and even if you believe in another God, if no one ever spoke about what they believed in, it would never be a recognizable. It has to be spoken. So that in and itself, it brings back to, what if we had a God? We have a God that said He is the Word and the Word is God. How potent would that fact be if the things that people say actually cause movement in the earth? You know, a scientist could go and look for things all day long, and could find a host of things. But if he has not delivered that information to the masses, he would not be able to uh, earn income from it because no one knows about it. He has not spoken about it. It doesn't matter to them because they don't know about it. But once he starts to speak and give some contributions like to education and write books and things like that to communicate with people, then his gifts or his talents or his research are recognized and they're also compensated as well. So the bigger picture in this clearly confounding incident is that we want all the communication, we want it to be as functional as possible, but if there is a sort of rabbit hole type of behaviors that are taking us to a place where we actually don't want to be. Most people don't want to be alone. I don't care if you think you're a player or you're a stayer. If you're out there mixing and matching, you're with somebody else, not just yourself. You're not alone. You want somebody or somebodies. So it is inevitable that the things that you do are going to get you into a place, and things that we accept as far as communication and stuff. It's no way to get around the patience and the understanding that you need to have for clear communications. Case in point, I had communications with someone today, and I will say this: if you do not, and this is not about setting your expectations low, this is about deciding you're not going to be surprised by anybody's ill will or whatever they pull out of their brown bag towards you. It might be something that you wouldn't expect at the exact time that they do it, but just realize if anyone ever, especially, states to you that they're jealous, even if they're playing, even if you see the behavior and you know it and you ask and it's there, because there's going to be some indicators, and you discover this and they're really actually jealous. There's a form of jealousy. There's a fine line between jealousy, love, and protection as well too. So those need to be defined. But jealousy is when you believe that someone else is better than you and you won't be your best unless you're as good as they are. And that you can't be accepted unless you are who they are or you are what they are. And that is not going to be anyone's destiny to be exactly like someone else. I don't care if you're born into them. Many people, they're born into their families and they look like a mixed people in their families and they have the behaviors of one person, but it's still some difference because each person has a destiny in this planet and it's not the same. Um, so let me reel this back in. If we never communicated anything to each other, there will be no building taking place. For instance, a doctor A doctor could know all the things about child rearing and childbirth, but if she never tells anyone else, and she never teach or is never taught to anyone else by someone else's communication, it just never becomes a thing, and especially not something that earns this person income. So communication is directly impacted. Income is directly impacted by communication as well. Um, I have some contracts that I want to pursue as well. I have some contracts that I want to pursue. However, I'm looking at the entire environment. Being peaceable towards people, I'm going to the next phase. So we're going to unpack some things that are related to communication that we sometimes deny. So our behaviors are directly impacted and sometimes convoluted and also steered by the things that we actually say out of our mouths and we do at inopportune times. You have some people, they speak out of season, they say wrongful things to you without a reason, without a season, and they embrace that's who they are and that's who they want to be. And as long as they can hide it covertly or not, and who they care about will accept it, that's who they'll always be. Even if that person is just themselves. Once they get tired of being whoever they are, if it's wrong, they will stop, but they have to come to a threshold. This is why we do have to discipline ourselves. We can't say, self, you can do whatever you want to do, and everybody's supposed to accept me how I want to be. Um, eh, because if you're reckless and you're causing people trouble and you love it, and this is what you do and what you intend to increase on doing, if your karma is not even stopping you, then you're a lost cause and you're a lost person and you're not fit to be in anybody's way. And if you are, just realize that some of the submission that comes to you is only because of God's grace. It's not because you deserve it. It's because of God's grace. Because as long as He exists and He's able to be found in your life, He's going to show you some grace and some mercy in some situations where you know you didn't deserve. And once He starts doing that, and it becomes more than one situation, even if one, because only God knows when you're going to expire from here. And you will not be left without a witness. Somebody's going to know what you did at the last time, even if it's just the heavens, as far as I understand, because He doesn't leave anybody without a witness. And it may be godly things He doesn't leave without a witness. I will look up that scripture before I leave. But He sees and He knows everything. How could you be left without a witness? If He knows it, what you did at the end of your days, then He's going to judge us accordingly. Um, and so I was looking at something with news, and then I was thinking about some communications I had with someone that was a farce, basically. And I just can't believe, I can believe, but I just wanted to tell parents, have some caution about yourselves. Just because you feel good about your children going about living their great business lives and you don't care about their soul. If you believe in God, their blood stain is going to be required to your hands for you not caring about their souls. Because at the end of the day, all these things they build here on this planet, nobody can see if they put those in the box with a person once they leave here. They dig them up years later. Both that person and whatever they bear it with them is decrepit to some degree. So it's nothing that you're going to take with you before you leave here. So that should be an attestation that what you do here actually does matter. Everybody, um, even if you're a follower, if you're a leader, be the greatest one that you actually can be. If you discover who you are and what your purpose is supposed to be on this planet, God bless you. And if you are on the path of discovery, God bless you. But always try, make an earnest try to find out who you are supposed to be. There will be people, and if we really love money and business, let's talk about what Warren Buffett said. He said, "Someone is always trying to steal the castle. Somebody is always trying to steal the castle." This means before you even start building good, it can be people that recognize your greatness and your gifts, and they know you don't see it yet. So they start regurgitating things that you've told them as if you didn't ever say it before. And they're saying this because they make a point, because they're going to capitalize off of it, and you're going to be blindsided. Like, okay, I had a discussion. They didn't recognize that they had said it before, and they didn't recognize that they had given me this information, and I built on it because I don't want them thinking that I'm going to give them a part of anything that I have. So I'm going to pretend that this is mine. So in communication that way, we plagiarize people to some degree. I was speaking to someone on the phone that had given so many nuggets, and this is also sometimes you're somewhere where God doesn't want you to be. Sometimes you're somewhere where God tells you to be, and the person on the other side is not receiving the message that God has given to them. And it won't be revealed to either person unless they know what God is, unless they have a relationship to God with God. But if you did someone atrociously, this is a habit in communication. Men and women should not do these things. If you dealt your hand treacherously to someone and they have come back in a point where they actually require something of you, that is not your time for you to say, okay, now, I dealt treacherously with you, whether I had a reason or not. Everybody that I could, the status quo, they would agree with me because this is a nuance. So I can put you back in your box if I say this enough. And so you really don't have a valid reason. But this is not true. The fact is that sometimes people have things that you want and they know that you have some greatness in you. And they don't have the patience that God has to deal with you, or God have to deal with you in a way that God could only, at the capacity that only He can deal with you while you're on your journey to that greatness. So discussing things with everybody really is not happy for you. They're not happy with you. It's a person. Some people, they say one thing and they do one thing, maliciously do it. Now, this is not somebody, for me, for instance, if I tell one of my children, I would love to do this and I'm trying to do this and I'm going to set this date and do this, and then I actually don't do it. Let me see. I'm going to have to pause my stream. Actually, I'm not going to pause my stream because I didn't recognize that number. I didn't recognize that number. But I will say, dealing treacherously with someone because you wanted to deal treacherously with them in the past because you didn't have patience for what God could have had, the God capacity patience for, with that person, does not mean that you have a right to, when they ask you for help in the future, oh, God did this to them because they're the devil and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, you said I was the devil. Now I'm mad because you were saying I was the devil. So now, even though I know you was telling me the truth, and sometimes it's not the popular vote, and sometimes things are taken from people because they don't. Let me see.